Thank you all for coming this morning on such short notice. We wanted to hold this news conference to just outline our part of the investigation. We know that Mr. MacDonald pled guilty to manslaughter yesterday, but we wanted to provide you with some of the additional details and some of the timelines regarding the case. On Thursday, February 23rd, Peter Dale MacDonald, 54 years, entered a guilty plea to manslaughter in relation to the death of Michelle Charette, 40 years. Charette was reported missing on July 31st, 2000, and her decomposed body was found in the area of Drillard Road and Trenton Street on August 16, 2000. Autopsy determined that Miss Charette had been strangled. Since Mrs. Charette's death, the case has been investigated by several teams of Windsor Police Service detectives and has involved evidence gathering and several instances of DNA testing throughout the duration of the investigation. The current lead investigator on the case, Windsor Police Major Crime Detective Frank Provenetti, is here to my right, and he will answer any questions that you may have in regard to the investigation. July 31st, 2000, Michelle Charette, 40 years, was reported missing by her father. August 16th of 2000, the remains of Miss Charette are found in a grassy field in the area of Drillard Road at Trenton Street in the city of Windsor. September 2000, the evidence gathered at the scene was sent to the Center of Forensic Sciences for DNA testing. At that time, in September of 2000, the results were negative on that evidence. April of 2009, some 8 years later, Windsor Police Service Major Crime Detectives traveled to Kingston Penitentiary, where Peter Dale MacDonald was incarcerated, and they were there to interview MacDonald regarding the Charette homicide. At that time, MacDonald denied any involvement in that homicide. November 12, 2009, Major Crime Detectives received a telephone message from MacDonald from the Kingston Penitentiary advising that he wished to speak to them at that time. November 19th, 7 days later, Major Crime Detectives traveled to Kingston for the purpose of interviewing MacDonald, and during that interview, he confessed to the slaying of Michelle Charette. January 20th, MacDonald is arrested and charged with second-degree murder of Michelle Charette. Late in January 2010, the same month, after retaining legal counsel, MacDonald recants his original confession. August 5th, 2011, the original evidence that was seized from the scene back in 2000 was resubmitted to the Center of Forensic Science for re-examination, and on November 1st of 2011, the CFS returned with a positive DNA sample on the evidence matching that of Peter MacDonald. February 23rd, yesterday's date, Peter MacDonald pleads guilty to a charge of manslaughter and the death of Michelle Charette and is sentenced to 7 years as a result, rather. And I'll turn it over to Detective Provenetti, who will answer your questions to the best of his ability.
Let's gathered at the scene in August 2000.
Correct.
What was that specifically?
The match, the DNA match?
Yes.
It was a cigarette butt. A cigarette butt that was found less than 6 feet from Michelle's right knee. And you have to remember, it's a big grassy field. And Mr. MacDonald's DNA was on that cigarette butt.
So how do you link, though, that cigarette butt to her death? Because he could have been there earlier smoking and discarded the cigarette.
Not in that area. It's just, it's unlikely that the position of Michelle's body, if you've seen the photos, I don't know if you have, and that area is very isolated. There is a pathway that's 30 feet away. The chances of him just passing by is not likely.
Was there ever a motive in this killing?
Mr. MacDonald is a lifelong criminal with a very violent background. So my experience with Mr. MacDonald is that he has a bad temper and he just snaps, as indication of his last conviction for second-degree murder. He's just, he loses control and kills people.
So did they know each other then?
Michelle Charette, and yes, they did.
They did?
Yes, they lived in the same area.
Was it just the technology that wasn't available in 2000?
Correct. The technology today is enhanced and much better, and back in 2000 we got a profile off the cigarette, but not enough to to link it to anybody. Now the technology today is so much better that Mr. MacDonald's DNA was within the billions of anybody else doing it. So we've come that far.
Were you pleased with the plea of manslaughter as opposed to second degree?
I can't get into that. That's the Crown's decision. I thought we had a very strong case. We would have solved this without Mr. MacDonald confessing, I'm sure of it. We had his DNA. Mr. MacDonald, I think, he likes the attention. So we've been working on this for 12 years now. It's not something that Mr. MacDonald just walked in and said, hey, I'm your guy. There's been teams of detectives for 12 years working on this. When major crime was started, each detective in major crime is assigned cold cases, and every day we look at these cold cases. And it's not Mr. MacDonald that came to us; we sought him out. So if you're under the belief that he's the one that solved this case, that's not true.
Why now? Was it because of the strong? Well, I guess you'd be somewhat guessing, but would the guilty plea be because of how strong the evidence was against him now?
Yes, it's the DNA. It's looking at the evidence and resubmitting it, and going over the evidence over and over again that solved this case.
When did Mr. MacDonald become a suspect?
Right in 2000.
Well, right away.
Yes, he did.
Do you know the relationship between the two?
It was just from what I know, it was just a casual relationship. They lived in the same area, lived across the street from each other on Drillard Road, so we're not giving up. We always look at these cold cases, and if you come into our office, they're spread all over our desks. We go through them with a fine-tooth comb.